The afternoon sun beat down on the peeling paint of the small two-story house on Maple Avenue. Inside, the Johnson family sat around the kitchen table, a stack of unpaid bills between them. The air was heavy, not from heat, but from silence, the kind that comes when hope starts to thin out. Monica Johnson, a single mother of two, rubbed her temples. She had dark circles under her eyes from working double shifts at the diner. Across from her, her teenage son Caleb was hunched over his homework, pretending not to notice the worry in her face. His younger sister Lila, only 9, colored quietly in her notebook, trying to pretend everything was normal. Then came the knock. Hard, impatient. Monica looked toward the door, already knowing who it was. When she opened it, Mr. Bradley, the landlord, stood on the porch, tall, well-fed, mid-50s, dressed too well for someone visiting the edge of town. His shiny car was parked in the driveway like a threat. "Afternoon, Mrs. Johnson," he said, voice cold and rehearsed. "We need to talk." Monica swallowed. "Mr. Bradley, I know the rent's late, but—" He cut her off, pulling a paper from his folder. "3 months late. I've been patient, but patience doesn't pay the mortgage. Consider this your official notice. You and your kids need to vacate by the end of the week." Lila's crayon slipped from her hand. Monica's breath caught. "End of the week? That's not even legal. You said you'd give us—" Bradley shrugged. "I gave you extensions. More than you deserve. I can't keep making exceptions." Her voice shook. "I lost one of my jobs after the diner cut shifts. I've been trying, I swear. I just need 2 more weeks." He looked around the small kitchen, eyes filled with disdain. "Mrs. Johnson, you've been trying for months. This isn't personal. It's business." Caleb stood up from the table. "We're not trash. You can't just throw us out." Bradley gave a thin, sarcastic smile. "Watch your tone, young man. I can, and I will. The law's on my side." Monica put a hand on Caleb's shoulder. "Please," she said quietly, "just give us a little more time." Bradley sighed as if bored. "You've had enough time. I'll be back Friday with movers. Have your things packed." He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway, glancing back with a smug look. "You might want to look for a cheaper place, something more your speed." The door shut behind him. Monica stood frozen, hands still on the doorknob. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to steady her breathing. Caleb clenched his fists. "He can't do this. We've lived here for years," Monica whispered. "He can. Unless we find another way." Lila tugged at her sleeve, voice small. Mom, are we going to lose our house?" Monica crouched down, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "No, baby, I won't let that happen." But when she looked at the stack of bills again, the paper on top, eviction notice, felt heavier than all of them combined. She stared at it until the letters blurred, then whispered to herself, "There's got to be something I can do." Outside, Bradley's car engine started, humming like a clock counting down. That night, the Johnsons barely slept. Monica lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning through every possible way to come up with rent in 5 days. The next morning, she put on her diner uniform and left early. She didn't have a shift. She just didn't want the kids to see her cry. Her first stop was the local assistant's office, a plain beige building with flickering lights and a line that wrapped around the corner. The waiting room smelled like cheap coffee and paperwork. When her number was called, she sat across from a tired-looking caseworker named Mrs. Hensley. Monica slid the eviction notice across the desk. "Please, I just need help covering 1 month's rent. I've been working 2 jobs, but my paycheck got cut." The woman scanned the paper, expression neutral. "Our emergency housing fund's already been used up this quarter. You might try the church downtown or maybe the community shelter." Monica's voice cracked. "You don't understand. I have 2 kids. I can't take them to a shelter." The caseworker sighed, clearly worn down by too many stories just like hers. "I wish I could do more." Monica nodded, clutching the notice back as if it could crumble from her grip. "Yeah, me too." She left before the tears came. At the church, Father Thomas gave her a kind smile, but the same answer. Donations were down, and the most they could do was give her a grocery voucher. By the afternoon, her legs ached from walking, her shoes soaked from the rain that had started falling. She ended up in the public library, dripping wet, sitting in front of an old computer. Typing legal help eviction free into the search bar, she clicked through dozens of links before landing on one for Community Legal Aid, a nonprofit downtown. Her phone buzzed. It was Caleb. Mom, did you find anything? She hesitated. Maybe. I'm going to stop by one more place. When she reached the office, it wasn't what she expected. No marble floors, just a narrow hallway filled with boxes of files. Behind the reception desk sat a young man in a slightly wrinkled suit, typing quickly. Hi, Monica said, voice small. I'm looking for help. My landlord's trying to evict us. He looked up and smiled, tired but genuine. You came to the right place. I'm Daniel Brooks, one of the attorneys here. Why don't you tell me what's going on? She explained everything. The late payments, the notice, the years she'd lived in that house. Daniel listened carefully, occasionally jotting notes. When she finished, he leaned back. You said the landlord's name is Bradley? The one who owns several rentals on Maple Avenue? She nodded. Daniel frowned slightly. I've heard of him. You'd be surprised how often his name shows up here. He stood, moving toward a file cabinet. Let's start by checking the property's records. Sometimes landlords cut corners with paperwork. Or worse. Monica blinked. Worse? Daniel smiled faintly. You'd be surprised how many people own homes they technically don't. For the first time that day, Monica felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. The next morning, Daniel Brooks sat at his cluttered desk, a half-empty cup of coffee beside a pile of property files. Rain tapped softly against the office window as he pulled up the county registry database. He typed in the address, 142 Maple Avenue. The record appeared on screen, ownership listed under Bradley Holdings, LLC, purchased 10 years ago. Nothing unusual at first glance. But as he scrolled through older transfers, a strange detail caught his eye. Before Bradley, the property had been owned by Eleanor and Henry Johnson, the same last name as Monica. Daniel frowned, leaning closer. That can't be a coincidence, he murmured. He clicked open the archived deed. It was scanned from old paper, faded but legible. The final line read, in accordance with the late Eleanor Johnson's wishes, the property at 142 Maple Avenue shall remain in the family line, to be passed down to direct descendants upon her death. His heart skipped. Now wait a second. He printed the document, then cross-referenced probate records. There it was again, a will, handwritten and notarized, dated almost 30 years ago. It mentioned a transfer clause that should have automatically passed ownership to the next of kin once Eleanor died, but that had never happened. Somewhere along the line, the title had been transferred to Bradley Holdings through a private sale, one that should have been legally impossible without family consent. Daniel rubbed his forehead, stunned. He stole it. He grabbed his phone and called Monica. She answered breathlessly. Mr. Brooks, did you find something? Maybe more than something, he said. Can you come in this afternoon? Bring any old paperwork you might have? Leases, receipts, even letters from your parents or grandparents. She paused. My mother passed away years ago. I don't think even a family photo could help, Daniel interrupted gently. Anything that proves you're related to Eleanor Johnson. There was a long silence. Then Monica whispered, Eleanor was my grandmother. Daniel's eyes widened. Then you need to come here right away. When she arrived, still wearing her diner apron, Daniel spread the papers across his desk. This will, he said, tapping the document, states that the property should have stayed in your family. That means Bradley's ownership may be completely invalid. Monica blinked in disbelief. You're saying this house was ours all along? Daniel nodded slowly. It looks that way. But we need official proof. Birth certificates? Maybe your grandmother's death record. If we can show that you're her direct descendant, we can challenge his claim. Monica sank into the chair, hand over her mouth. All this time, I've been paying rent for my own family's home. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's what it looks like. The office fell silent, the hum of the fluorescent light filling the space. Then Monica whispered, voice trembling, We're not leaving. Not this time. Daniel gave a small, confident smile. Good, because I'm not letting him get away with this. Outside, the rain began to ease. Through the window, a single beam of light broke through the clouds. Faint, but real. For the first time, it felt like the Johnsons might actually win. 2 days later, the Johnsons sat nervously in the small conference room at the Community Legal Aid Office. The air felt tight. Monica clasped her hands together, eyes fixed on the door. Across from her, Daniel Brooks organized a neat stack of documents: the will, the deed history, and a printed timeline of ownership transfers. Then the door opened. Mr. Bradley walked in. His expression was smug, confident, the kind of look only a man certain of his power could wear. He was followed by his attorney, a polished man in an expensive gray suit. "Let's make this quick," Bradley said, sitting down without being invited. "I've got other properties to check on." Daniel didn't look fazed. "Of course. Thank you for coming, Mr. Bradley. I just wanted to clarify some things about the ownership of the property at 142 Maple Avenue." Bradley smirked. "There's nothing to clarify. The tenant's in violation of her lease. She hasn't paid rent. Case closed." Daniel slid a single sheet of paper across the table. "This is the original deed to the property, recorded 30 years ago. It shows the previous owner was Eleanor Johnson, Monica's grandmother." Bradley's smile faltered for a moment, but he recovered quickly. "So, families sell property all the time?" Daniel nodded calmly. "They do, except this one wasn't sold properly. The sale to your holding company bypassed a binding will. According to that will, the property should have transferred to Eleanor's next of kin, Monica Johnson." Bradley's attorney leaned forward, frowning. "Do you have proof of inheritance?" Daniel opened a folder and produced two more documents: Eleanor Johnson's death certificate and Monica's birth certificate, with Eleanor listed as her maternal grandmother. Bradley's lawyer took them, scanning the pages, his expression tightening. Daniel continued, "Which means, legally, the sale 10 years ago had no authority. You can't sell something you never owned. Any rent collected since then would be subject to repayment." Bradley's voice sharpened. "You're bluffing. That's nonsense." Daniel met his eyes. "Then why don't we let a judge decide?" For a few seconds, no one spoke. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. Bradley leaned back in his chair, jaw clenching. "You think some outdated paperwork's going to change anything? I've got lawyers, I've got influence." Monica cut in, her voice steady for the first time. "You had all that when you threw us out too. Didn't stop you from being wrong." Bradley turned toward her, scowling. "Watch yourself." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "You might want to watch yourself, Mr. Bradley. Fraudulent property acquisition is a serious offense. If this goes to court, you're not just facing eviction reversal, you could face criminal investigation." Bradley's lawyer whispered something to him, low but urgent. Bradley's face flushed red. He stood abruptly, glaring at Daniel. "This isn't over." Daniel smiled faintly. "No, it's just getting started." Bradley stormed out, his footsteps echoing down the hall. When the door closed, Monica exhaled shakily. "Do you think he'll back down?" Daniel gathered the papers. "Not yet. Men like him don't give up until someone makes them." He looked up and smiled reassuringly. "That's what we're going to do." Monica nodded, her hands trembling, but this time it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. For the first time, the power had shifted. The courthouse smelled faintly of paper and tension. The Johnsons sat on the left side of the courtroom, Monica holding Lila's small hand, while Caleb stared straight ahead, jaw tight. At the front table, Daniel Brooks arranged his folders, every movement calm and deliberate. Across the aisle sat Mr. Bradley in a dark suit, whispering to his attorney with forced confidence. But the way his leg bounced under the table betrayed him. When the judge entered, everyone stood. The gavel struck once. "Case number 2461, Johnson versus Bradley Holdings," the clerk announced. Daniel rose. "Your Honor, this case concerns the wrongful eviction of the Johnson family and the fraudulent acquisition of property that was never legally transferred from its rightful heirs." The judge, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, nodded. "Proceed." Daniel called Monica Johnson to the stand first. Her voice trembled at first, but steadied as she told their story. The years they lived in that home, her grandmother Eleanor's connection to it, and the eviction notice that tore their lives apart. Then, Daniel approached the table and placed a faded document on the judge's bench. "This, Your Honor, is the original will of Eleanor Johnson, notarized and archived in the county records. It clearly states the property was to remain within the Johnson family line. No sale could occur without written consent of her direct descendant, which would be the plaintiff. The judge looked down at the signature. This is official? Daniel nodded. Verified through the probate office last week. The courtroom murmured. Bradley's lawyer stood. Objection, Your Honor. This so-called will doesn't invalidate the legal sale that occurred. Daniel turned toward him, his tone still calm. Except it does, because the sale violated a standing inheritance clause. And when that happens, the title is void, meaning Mr. Bradley has been collecting rent on property he doesn't legally own. The judge's eyebrows rose. That's a serious allegation. Daniel continued, we also have proof that the transfer of ownership was done through Bradley's shell company, not a personal transaction. He knew it was illegal. He just thought no one would notice. Bradley slammed a hand on the table. That's a lie. I bought that house fair and square. The judge's voice cut sharply. Mr. Bradley, you will remain seated. Daniel didn't flinch. Then perhaps he can explain this? He held up a printed email chain from the county office. Correspondence showing Bradley's attempt to expedite the ownership transfer before Eleanor's estate was fully settled. The judge read silently, her expression hardening. Mr. Bradley, did you or did you not authorize this? Bradley hesitated. My lawyers handled the paperwork. I trusted them. Daniel's voice was steady. Your lawyer at that time was your cousin, wasn't he? The same person who filed the transfer? The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge banged her gavel. Order! Bradley's lawyer looked pale. Your Honor, my client... The judge cut him off. Save it. I've seen enough. She turned toward Bradley, eyes cold. You exploited a loophole and hoped this family wouldn't have the means to fight back. Well, they did. Bradley slumped back in his chair, face red, hands trembling. Daniel turned to Monica, giving her a small nod. It was done. The judge sighed, setting the papers aside. I will be reviewing this case for formal ruling, but my preliminary finding is clear. The property at 142 Maple Avenue is rightfully owned by the Johnson family. Mr. Bradley's claim is hereby void. Monica gasped, covering her mouth. Caleb squeezed her shoulder. Lila whispered, Mom, we get to go home? Monica's eyes filled with tears. Yes, baby. We get to go home. As the gavel struck, Bradley sat frozen. For the first time, his wealth and arrogance couldn't save him. Daniel gathered his papers, stood, and looked at him one last time. You said it wasn't personal, Mr. Bradley, he said quietly. Turns out it always was. The sky over Maple Avenue was bright and blue when the Johnsons came home. The moving truck parked at the curb wasn't there to take their things away this time. It was bringing them back. Monica stood at the edge of the driveway, clutching the new deed in her hands. The paper was official now, stamped and signed. 142 Maple Avenue. Owner, Monica Johnson. She traced her fingers over the words again and again, afraid they might disappear if she blinked. Caleb carried a box inside, grinning for the first time in months. Feels weird, huh? He said. Monica smiled faintly. Feels right. Little Lila ran through the doorway, spinning in the middle of the living room. It still smells like us, she laughed. Monica chuckled softly, the sound trembling with relief. Guess home never really forgets. Across the street, a few neighbors watched from their porches. Some offered small smiles, others lowered their eyes, pretending they hadn't stayed silent when the eviction truck first came weeks ago. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Monica saw a black car pull up, the same one Bradley used to drive. He stepped out wearing a plain jacket instead of his usual tailored suit. No swagger now, just exhaustion. Daniel, who had come by to help them settle in, tensed. You want me to handle this? Monica shook her head. No, this one's mine. She walked down the path toward Bradley, stopping a few feet away. He looked at her, his face tight. I came to... She raised a hand. Don't. You came to see what it looks like when people get back what was already theirs. Bradley lowered his gaze. I didn't know about the will. My cousin... Monica cut him off again, firm but calm. You didn't want to know. You just wanted to win. He nodded slowly, guilt shadowing his expression. I guess I did. For a long moment, they stood there in silence, the landlord and the tenant, both stripped of the illusions that had separated them. Finally, Bradley said quietly, I'm sorry. Monica's voice softened. I don't hate you. But I hope you remember this the next time you think your name makes you better than someone else's. He nodded once, then turned and walked back to his car without another word. As the engine faded into the distance, Daniel stepped beside her. You handled that better than I would have. Monica smiled faintly. Maybe. But I didn't fight for revenge, Daniel. I fought for my kids to have a place to belong. He nodded, looking at the house. And now they do. Inside, Caleb and Lila were unpacking. Laughter filled the hallways again, hesitant at first, then free. Monica stood in the doorway, the sunlight warming her face. The house that had once felt like a prison of fear now felt alive again. On the mantel, she placed an old photo. Eleanor Johnson, smiling in her garden. "Welcome home, Grandma," she whispered. "We made it back." Outside, the breeze moved through the trees, soft and steady, like the house itself was breathing again.